Now, some people term data engineers as professionals who work behind the scenes to make analytics happen. Actually, that's what they do. Hello guys, welcome back to Data Rant. It's so amazing to have you here and I'm so excited to be sharing with you once again. So today I'll be talking about data engineering with more emphasis on what a data engineer actually does. Data engineering is very essential in the data science world because data engineering is the field that takes care of the structure and the architecture of every data science system. Now, what I mean by the structure and the architecture of every data science system, now, in the data science world, what is basically being used is data for whatever thing that is going to be done. So, the data engineering field actually takes care of how this data is actively utilized right from the point of collection to the point where it gets to the analyst and the scientist and they start beginning to do some form of analytics on it. So this field is very important because they help in transforming data, making data ready for any form of analysis. Now, some people term data engineers as professionals who work behind the scenes to make analytics happen. Actually, that's what they do. Because if they don't help in making data to sit properly in some place where the scientists, the analysts can reach out to and just get it, then it makes the entire analytics process faulty or it makes the entire process not to move forward. So just like we keep hearing that data is the new oil, we know that oil cannot be used in its raw state. Without oil being refined, we can never get the merits from oil just like we do in our day. That is the exact thing that the data engineer does with regards to data. So the data engineer actually takes hold of the data in its raw state and tries to transform this data basically into a state that can be easily received by the analyst and the scientist and they can make sense of that refined or transformed in data science terms or clean data. In recent times, we've been having high volumes of data moving around the world today. We've been having like loads and loads of petabytes of data in circulation every single time. Now, this data is really huge and therefore we need more data engineers to help in transforming this data so that analytics can be done on them even in real time. Now, this is where data engineers are also referred to as big data engineers. Once we have this data coming in large volumes and the frequency at which the data comes in becomes more and more, high, then, we tend to call such data big data, and then the engineers working on that are also referred to as big data engineers. But basically, they are still doing the same thing, data engineering. Data engineers basically work with, lots of other professions in the data science world, but with particular attention to data architects. They work with data architects to determine the exact structure of the data that will fit into the business problem or the business requirement that they desire to work with. So, the data can be stored in different formats based on the solution that the business actually requires. So the data engineers work very closely with the data architect and they also work with the data scientists to also get to know how the data should be and what formats will be most appropriate and how it should be stored for them too. But that is basically one of the responsibilities of the data engineer. So they just work hand in hand with other professionals in the data science world to ensure that data is gotten in its right and proper state. So like I started earlier with the video and I said I'm going to detail more on what a data engineer basically does. So I'm just going to list like some form of responsibilities of a data engineer. Now note that the responsibilities can differ based on organization, right? So organizations like startups and then the big firms will not have the exact responsibility for a data engineer. He could tend to do more or he could tend to do less. It just depends on the organization. But there are some things that are very basic, and you would find every data engineer doing it irrespective of the organization. So number one, data engineers design, they test, and they maintain the data architecture. Now, the data architecture is very important because this is what actually controls the flow of data from the point of reception to the point where it gets to the place for analysis, right? So the data engineer actually designs that entire process and maintains it. Maintaining it is very important because lots of data will be coming in real time, and that has to happen automatically. The process has to be moving automatically, and then that is one of the basic responsibilities of a data engineer. He or she controls the free flow of data from the point of collection to the point where it gets to analysis. Secondly, just like I've earlier mentioned, the data engineers work with the data architects to ensure that the architecture that they come up with will support the business requirements. This is very important because the entire story of data science is to be able to make use of data to optimize business processes or answer certain business questions. So the architecture has to be in such a way that it is basically fulfilling its primary objective, which is the business requirement. So the data engineer works hand in hand with the data architect to ensure that this happens. Now, in some organizations, the data engineer and the data architect could be one person, it could be one team. But then in some organizations, it could be different people or different teams. So yeah, they'll work hand in hand to ensure that this happens and that the business requirement is met. So number three, they don't only design the architecture, they also build the data pipeline. Now, the data pipeline is the entire flow from where the data is being sourced to how the data is being processed, transformed, massaged, and to how the data is being loaded so that other analysts or other scientists can have access to it. So after coming up with the architecture, they also build the pipeline to ensure that free flow. Yeah. Number four, the data engineers improve the quality, the efficiency, and the reliability of the data. Now, data quality is very, very important. It's at the heartbeat of every data engineer because the reliability of the data is solely on the quality of the data. The data has to be trusted. The transformation done on the data has to be trusted. Every single thing that is done on the data has to be in such a way that the data does not lose the real information. So the data engineers work on improving the efficiency, the reliability, and the quality of data because they don't want to mess with the real information from the data during the transformation. This is very important and it's a very serious key for every data engineer. So lastly on my list, just like the way the engineers work with data, now this data is gotten from different sources, different systems with different architectures. So the data engineer basically help in aggregating, these different data from different sources into one and then coming up with a solution or coming up with a procedure or a pipeline to transform the data and then load it to a place where it can be reached out to for analysis. So finally, I'm going to be diving into the skills that are necessary or skills that are expected of a data engineer. Now, just in case you want to dive into the data engineering field, this will serve as a startup platform for you to, get the appropriate skills and get ready for the market proper. So as a data engineer, you'll be working with multiple databases. So there is need for you to understand the language of databases. So in this, I'm talking about SQL and NoSQL because you won't just be working with structured form of data. You would also be working with unstructured data. So it's also good to know how to, manage data from multiple databases, from both the structured databases and from unstructured databases. So you also need to know how to build data pipelines. You also need to know how to, extract data from, different sources, try to transform the data and then load it in appropriate formats depending on what the business requires. That knowledge is very important. Running that entire process is one of the basic responsibility of a data engineer. So that is a very important skill that you need to know: building data pipelines. Understanding of distributed systems is also very important. You need to understand how distributed systems work and how you can integrate that to get whatever information you need to get, while also paying attention to programming languages like Python, Java, Scala, as the case may be. So, but Python and Java is very important as a data engineer, because this is going to help you when you're doing your data processing, while also working with, big data tools like Hadoop and Spark for running like several jobs that will help in the ETL process. It is very important for you as a data engineer to also get to know that. Now, in our day, we have loads of information running around in form of data in its raw state, and because of the volume of this information, most companies are now leveraging on cloud platforms to store their data, to get data from. So having a knowledge and proper understanding of how the cloud platform works is very important for a data engineer. So either you be, learning about the AWS, learning about Google Cloud, learning about Microsoft Azure, it's important for you to have the knowledge of, cloud systems, how things work in the cloud, because most of the jobs you'll be running will be interfacing and talking to different cloud platforms. So it's very, very important that is also a skill you get as a data engineer. Alright, so guys, that will be it for today's video. I've explained what a data engineer is, and I've also talked about, several things that a data engineer basically does and the skills that is expected of a data engineer in order for him or her to be able to carry out his day-to-day job. And data engineering is a very interesting and essential field in the world of data science. Underneath this video, I have a link to an elaborated Medium post still talking about this same topic, and you may want to read that and share with friends if you really want to dive deep into that. Now, the demand for data engineers is very, very high in our world today, because we have loads of data and then we have insufficient hands to be able to transform this data so that the scientists can make sense out of it. So in case you like this video and you enjoyed it, please click the like button and ensure that you share with your friends and share the knowledge. Let's make everybody know how vital a data engineer is in our world today. And just in case you still haven't subscribed to this channel, I have much interesting, videos and ideas coming your way, and you don't want to miss out on any of that. So why don't you just click on the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the videos that I have. In case you have questions or you have things you want to share, you can always reach out to me, or your ideas or your thoughts about who a data engineer is, or anything you want to share, you can also put it in the comment section of this video. I will be so glad if you do that. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video.